When countertop slow cookers hit American kitchens in the 1970s, busy families finally had a pot that worked while they worked. From packet pot roast to church potluck stews, these set-it-and-serve suppers became weeknight legends. Tonight, 25 real crock-pot dinners from the classic boom. Simple, affordable, and still worth making. 1. Pot roast with onion soup mix. A chuck roast nestled on cut carrots and potatoes became the set-and-forget dinner of the decade, its savory packet seasoning melting into a gravy that coated everything with weeknight relief. Some cooks browned the meat first, others didn't. Either way, the packet scattered over top, a splash of water, the lid went on, and the slow cooker's steady heat did what ovens once demanded constant tending to do. It made sense because chuck was inexpensive yet rich with connective tissue that turned silky over long, low hours, and the dry soup mix standardized flavor for busy households that needed certainty more than fuss. What lingered was the meaning: a house that smelled like Sunday even on a Wednesday, a platter that could sit on warm for late shift arrivals, leftover slices tucked into sandwiches, and the realization that convenience didn't have to cancel comfort. Ta chili con carne, ground beef, tomatoes, onions, and beans settled into an all-day simmer that turned pantry odds and ends into a thick red bowl of plenty, the kind that could feed friends who stayed after the game. The how was friendly to schedules: brown the meat, stir in canned tomatoes and beans with spices or a packet, drop the lid, and let the cooker's quiet bubble deepen everything while life happened elsewhere. It made sense because meat could be stretched without feeling scarce, beans were affordable protein, and big batches froze into future dinners and lunchboxes, proof that one pot could solve multiple days. The meaning showed up in gatherings and leftovers alike: a ladle shared at potlucks, a heat level negotiated at the table, and a fridge that promised there would be something satisfying even when tomorrow ran long. 3. BBQ pulled pork sandwiches. A budget pork shoulder turned tender under slow heat until it surrendered to the fork, then met bottled sauce or a simple vinegar brown sugar mix before being piled onto soft buns that soaked up every drip. The method respected time more than technique. Rub if you liked, set the roast fat cap up, walk away for hours, shred when the bone slips free, and stir in sauce to taste while the cooker holds warm for guests who wander in waves. It made sense because shoulder was cheap, forgiving, and generous enough to feed a youth group, a birthday crowd, or a church committee with seconds to spare, and supermarket buns stretched the feast without straining the budget. Meaning lived in the steam that lifted when the lid came off, the easy invitation to take more, and the way one pot turned a weekday into an occasion. 4. Hearty beef stew. Cubes of tough beef, dredged or not, fell in with onions, carrots, potatoes, and a bay leaf, then surrendered their edges to a thick, glossy gravy that only slow time can coax. Some browned the meat first for depth, others let the cooker build flavor on its own with broth, Worcestershire, and a few pantry herbs while the root vegetables softened without collapsing, the lid capturing every bit of warmth. It made sense because inexpensive cuts transformed under moist heat. Vegetables were budget-friendly ballast, and the make-ahead nature meant a hot meal waited through homework, carpools, and late commutes. Meaning arrived in fogged windows and quiet kitchens, the scrape of a ladle against the crock, bowls set down with gratitude, and a stew that tasted even better the next day, as if thrift and patience had seasons of their own. 5. Creamy chicken rice. Chicken pieces settled over rice, and a blanket of condensed soup turned into the gentlest kind of one-pot comfort, the slow cooker smoothing edges into a spoonable, company texture kids loved. The how was a stack and walk away. Rice down first, soup loosened with a little broth across the top, seasoned chicken tucked in, lid on low, and maybe peas folded in at the finish while the cooker shifted to warm for staggered dinner times. It made sense because pantry cans acted like reliable shortcuts. Rice made small portions feel generous, and the machine prevented scorching without supervision. Exactly what working parents and church social cooks needed. Meaning was mild and memorable. Plates scraped clean, leftovers packed for thermoses, and the reassurance that a plain, steady dish could hold a whole evening together without asking for attention. 6. Swiss steak with peppers. Round steak met a crock of tomatoes, onions, and bell peppers and came out fork tender, the tough edges softened into something you could cut with a spoon. The cook's touch was light, a quick dredge, a short brown if time allowed, then everything bathed in tomato and left to relax under a steady lid. Canned tomatoes and pantry peppers made this easy to assemble before work. The slow cooker handled the patient braise home ovens once demanded. It made sense because round steak was economical, and the tomato pepper gravy turned every slice into something richer than its price. The meaning was in the aroma that greeted people at the door, the way the sauce welcomed mashed potatoes, noodles, or plain bread, and the satisfaction of serving a company taste on a Tuesday. Many still crave it, because it captures what the slow cooker promised from the very start. Minimal effort, maximal tenderness, reliable comfort. 7. Beef stroganoff, slow cooker style. Beef and mushrooms relaxed all afternoon into a savory base that turned silky when a little sour cream went in near the end, making a sauce that clung to noodles like a promise kept. The how was straightforward. Let the pot build depth while you worked, then finish creamy when dinner time neared so nothing split under long heat. This made sense in the boom years because a stretchy sauce could make less beef feel like more, and mushrooms added body without straining the budget. It tasted like a weeknight upgrade. Familiar flavors softened into something you might have once saved for weekends. The memory is clatter and comfort. Noodles steaming, bowls passed, a table nodding in quiet agreement that fancy can be friendly. For many households, this was the dish that proved the countertop pot could deliver elegance without anxiety. 8. Split pea soup with ham bone. Dried peas tumbled into the crock with a holiday ham bone and a few carrots, then slowly gave up their shape until the broth turned velvety and the meat let go in tender threads. The method was nearly hands-off. Bone in, lid on, a stir or two to help the peas melt, and patience while the cooker made more out of less. It made sense because peas were inexpensive, the bone needed no babysitting, and the results covered days, thermos lunches, quick bowls between chores, a ladle waiting late for whoever came home last. The meaning sat in the thrift and the warmth. A soup that honored what remained after a feast and proved that leftovers could feel like a new gift. In the slow cooker era, this was the brown bag champion, steady, filling, and better on day 2, the way good soups like to be. 9. Baked beans with franks. A can or two of beans sweetened with molasses settled low in the crock while sliced hot dogs waited their turn, slipping in late so they kept their snap. The pot hummed quietly through the afternoon, ready whenever homework ended or a game ran long. It made sense because the math worked. Cans plus franks equaled an ultra-budget dinner with big flavor and almost no effort. This was kids' night in a bowl, no bargaining at the table, no need for a timer. The memory is simple and bright. Shiny beans, blistered coins of hot dog, a mustard jar nearby just in case. For busy families, it proved that convenience could still feel homemade, and that the slow cooker excelled at meals where timing didn't have to be exact. No complaints, easy seconds, smiles that arrived before the first spoonful cooled. 10 stuffed green peppers. Peppers sat snug in the crock, filled with a modest mix of beef and rice, tucked under tomato sauce, and braised until the edges softened and the centers set. The method favored make-ahead cooks, assemble in the morning, nestle in, pour sauce, and let the day do the cooking. It made sense because garden peppers were plentiful, rice stretched a small amount of meat, and the slow cooker kept everything upright and tender without watching the oven. When the lid lifted, there was color and comfort. Greens mellowed, red sauce bright, a plate that felt more elaborate than its parts. Meaning lived in how well they traveled. Potluck ready, lunchbox friendly, easy to reheat, a tidy bundle that could feed many with little waste. In the slow cooker boom, these peppers were a quiet star. Heritage flavor shaped by a modern machine, practical and proudly shareable. 11. Chicken cacciatore. Chicken pieces settled into a crock with tomatoes, peppers, mushrooms, and a handful of familiar herbs, turning into a saucy braise that tasted like a Sunday pot without the babysitting. The how was gentle. Pile everything in, Let the slow heat coax juices from the vegetables and finish with a stir so the mushrooms share their deep, woodsy flavor. It made sense because budget chicken could be tenderized by time, and jarred sauces or canned tomatoes sped prep for parents juggling commutes and homework. Supermarket aisles brought Italian-American comfort within reach, no simmering at the stove, no scorching risk. The meaning is that warm welcome at the end of the day, steam that fogs glasses, a ladle over noodles or bread, and the feeling that you kept a promise to feed everyone well with what you had. 12. Cabbage rolls, Golumki style. Par-cooked cabbage leaves wrapped a small mix of meat and rice, nested close in a crock, then disappeared beneath tomato sauce for an all-afternoon braise. The how rewarded patience more than technique. Roll, layer, sauce, and walk away while the leaves turn silky and the center set. It made sense because slow, moist heat guaranteed tender results without hovering, and rice stretched meat so a little could feed many. For families with Polish, Slovak, or Ukrainian roots, and for neighbors who learned from them, this turned a heritage dish into a doable weeknight plan. The meaning arrived under the lifted lid: familiar perfume, tidy bundles that cut clean on the plate, and the quiet pride of serving something with history made possible by a countertop pot. 13. Kielbasa, sauerkraut. Smoked sausage rested on a bed of kraut and onions with a splash of apple, the crock softening the tang and letting the sausage season everything beneath it. The method was nearly effortless: kraut down first, onions tucked in, sausage on top so the juices trickle where they're needed, and then time does the rest. It made sense because the ingredient list was short, the cost was low, and the payoff was bold enough to need only bread and mustard on the side. Tailgate or Tuesday, it met people where they were, hungry and busy, with flavors that cut through cold evenings. The meaning is straightforward joy: a lid lifted to warm spice and gentle sour, plates filled fast, seconds offered freely, and leftovers that reheat with even better balance the next day. 14. Teriyaki chicken, bottle sauce era. Chicken thighs soaked in a sweet savory glaze that the slow cooker turned glossy and tender, an early taste of global flavor delivered by the supermarket shelf. The how fit the decade: pour a bottled sauce over seasoned chicken, let the crock do the work, and if you want shine, give the pieces a quick finish under heat to set the glaze. It made sense because bottled sauces standardized success for cooks exploring beyond familiar gravies, and thrifty thighs stayed juicy over long hours. Families got variety without takeout, and dinner stayed predictable for picky eaters who liked sweet notes and soft textures. The meaning lived in curiosity made easy: kids learning a new flavor, parents finding a weeknight win, and a table where a simple pot gently widened the map. 15. Sweet and sour pork. Chunks of pork settled with peppers and onions under a bright sauce with pineapple folded in late so the fruit stayed lively and the colors held. The method loved the slow cooker's temperament: steady heat to relax a budget cut, vegetables added for crunch, and a final stir that balanced tang and sweet without fuss. It made sense because canned pineapple was affordable year-round, pantry sauces kept costs down, and one pot fed a crowd over plain rice. For many households, this became the Friday treat that didn't require a phone call or a drive, just a lid to lift and bowls to fill. The meaning is week's end relief: cheerful colors, friendly flavor, and the sense that thrift can feel celebratory when time and intention do the cooking. 16. French dip roast beef, au jus. A budget roast rested on sliced onions with canned consommé or broth, then slowly gave up its toughness to become sliceable or shreddable and richly scented. The how favored patience: long braise, lift the meat, strain the juices, and ladle the hot au jus into small bowls for dipping. It made sense because cheap roasts turned luxurious when time did the work, and pantry broth made a dependable base without hovering over a pot. Meaning arrived at sandwich night that felt like a splurge: rolls piling high, steam on glasses, and a table that went quiet with the first dunk. 17. Shredded beef tacos. Chuck Rose took a simple spice rub, packet or pantry, and spent the day relaxing until it fell into tender threads that welcomed warm tortillas. The method kept stress low. Set it early, shred when ready, and put out small bowls of whatever the fridge offered. Onion, a spoon of salsa, lettuce, or beans. It made sense because one pot fed a crowd, spice packets kept costs predictable, and leftovers morphed into burritos or rice bowls without extra cooking. The meaning was family style in motion. Everyone builds a plate, seconds are easy, and the slow cooker turns weeknight dinner into a small celebration. 18. Jambalaya, slow cooker adaptation. Sausage and chicken simmered with tomatoes, peppers, and Cajun seasoning until the pot held deep, savory warmth. Rice went in late or sat waiting under the ladle to keep it from going soft. The how respected the machine's rhythm. Brown if you like. Layer the base, let the cooker build flavor, then marry it with rice just before serving. It made sense because pantry spices traveled cheaply, proteins were flexible to budget and taste, and the result carried Louisiana spirit to kitchens far from the Gulf. Meaning came in generous bowls that woke a cold evening, smoky, peppery, and friendly to seconds. 19. Minestrone soup, tomatoes, beans, and a crate's worth of vegetables settled into a gentle all-day simmer that turned scraps and cans into a broth with backbone. Pasta slid in near the end so it stayed lively. The method welcomed improvisation. Green beans or zucchini if you had them. A heel of Parmesan to deepen the pot. A handful of spinach on the finish. It made sense because minestrone thrived on leftovers, stayed budget-wise, and delivered lunches for days without tasting tired. The meaning was a clean crisper and full bowls, comfort that felt both nourishing and thrifty, with color enough to brighten the table. 20. Potato corn chowder. Potatoes and onions softened in the crock with corn, frozen or canned, until the broth turned thick and cozy. Dairy joined at the end so the soup stayed smooth and gentle. The how was forgiving. Let the base build flavor slowly, mash a few potatoes against the side for body, and finish with milk or cream only when the heat is calmed. It made sense because spuds and corn were cheap, hearty, and always around, and the slow cooker kept watch while afternoons turned early dark. Meaning arrived in wide, warm bowls, steam rising, spoon steady, and a room that felt smaller in the best way. Next up, the casseroles, roasts, and Sunday set-it specials that made the slow cooker a 1970s icon. 21. Scalloped potatoes with ham. Thin sliced potatoes stacked with dots of ham and onions turned the slow cooker into a countertop casserole, the kind that made a small amount of meat feel generous across a whole pot. The how was simple and steady. Layer potatoes, scatter bits of ham, spoon on a creamy sauce, repeat, and let low heat do the baking a busy day wouldn't allow. It made sense because a single cup of leftover ham from a holiday or Sunday roast could flavor 6 plates, and pantry staples, potatoes, milk, a little fat, were always waiting. Families loved that the crock kept it hot for late arrivals and softened the edges into the tenderness people expect from oven-baked scallops without tying anyone to a timer. The meaning lingers in after-holiday weeks and school night suppers, thrift without compromise, a familiar perfume when the lid lifts, and a spoon that cuts clean through layers of comfort. 22. No-boil slow cooker lasagna. Dry noodles, jarred sauce, and a trio of cheeses layered straight into the crock gave households a lasagna that needed no pre-boil, no foil tent, and no oven juggling with everything else. The method followed a friendly mantra: sauce, noodle, cheese, repeat. Then low heat softened the sheets as moisture from the sauce did the work water usually does. It made sense because 1970s Rival booklets and grocery aisle convenience turned a weekend dish into a weeknight. Wow. Using pantry jars and a machine that could babysit dinner while life pulled in every direction. The crock's gentle steam kept edges from burning and delivered slices that held together like a celebration, even if the budget didn't. The memory it made is clear. A table leaning in for the first square, steam rising, and the quiet pride of serving something that tastes like effort without feeling like it. 23. Chicken noodle soup. A whole bird, or just legs and thighs, settled into the pot with carrots, celery, and onion, giving up its goodness to a broth that grew golden and sure of itself over the day. The how respected timing. Pull the chicken to shred, return the meat, Then stir in noodles near the end so they stay tender without going soggy, and let warm hold the pot through staggered evenings. It made sense because one bird could feed for days. The bones paid rent in flavor, and the slow cooker prevented boilovers that used to demand a watchful stove. What it meant was care in a crock, a remedy for cold weeks, an easy send-off in a thermos, a taste that met children and elders where they were. In homes where schedules collided, this pot was a constant, steady, nourishing, and ready when anyone needed a bowl to breathe over. 24. Corned beef cabbage. A brisket settled under water and spices in the crock, while time loosened every fiber. Then cabbage, carrots, and potatoes dropped in late so they kept their shape and sweetness. The method matched the machine. Long, gentle simmer for the meat, then a staged finish that honored each vegetable, yielding slices you could lift without crumbling and greens that tasted bright instead of boiled away. It made sense because spring sale briskets put the tradition within reach, and the slow cooker's even heat delivered the tenderness holiday hosts wanted without babysitting an oven. Meaning arrived in the ritual, mustard on the table, plates passed, leftovers ready for sandwiches, and in the calm of knowing a feast could manage itself while guests filled the house. The memory is a lid lifted to clove and pepper steam, a knife sliding through rosy meat, and a holiday that felt hands-off, yet fully present. 5. Turkey breast with herb gravy. A bone-in or boneless breast rubbed with herbs rested in the crock until it released clear drippings that promised a panless gravy. The whole bird experience scaled to a small household. The how was common sense and kind to schedules. Season, set low, walk away, then strain juices into a saucepan or back into the crock to thicken briefly while the meat rests for clean slices. It made sense because not every Sunday or Thanksgiving needed a full oven or a giant bird, and the slow cooker turned lean white meat tender without constant basting. The meaning is in the relief it offers, a centerpiece that doesn't demand attention, a table that still feels special, and leftovers that fit neatly into sandwiches and salads all week. When life asked for ceremony but time said otherwise, this pot delivered both: quiet abundance, reliable gravy, and a finish that tasted like you'd planned it all along. The slow cooker boom married supermarket convenience with old low and slow wisdom. A countertop pot did what a busy week needed most: steady heat, no watching, and a warm supper waiting after long days. Tough cuts turned tender while kids finished homework and parents wrapped a second shift of life. Canned tomatoes, broth, and beans filled gaps. Spice packets and bottled sauces made flavor predictable when time wasn't. The result wasn't restaurant food. It was dependable food. Bowls and platters that could sit on warm, serve seconds, and turn leftovers into tomorrow's lunch. These dinners carried more than calories. They carried planning. A roast set before work meant a family could still eat together, even if together happened in shifts. A lasagna built from jars delivered celebration on a school night. A pot of soup stretched one bird across days, proving thrift could be generous. Week after week, the slow cooker gave households a way to keep promises. There will be something hot. It will be ready when you are. It will taste like home. If any plate here belongs in your kitchen again, let it be the one that fits your life now. Packet pot roast with oniony gravy. No boil lasagna that makes a Tuesday feel special. French dip night with rolls and au jus. Or potato corn chowder that brightens an early dark. What slow cooker memory lives in your family? A church potluck, a birthday pulled pork pile, a soup that showed up whenever someone was under the weather? Tell us what you'd bring back, and add your own set it and serve classic to the list. That's how these dishes travel. One story, one lid lift, one shared bowl at a time. Sources for this episode draw on 1970s, 1980s slow cooker pamphlets and booklets, including Rival and BHG titles, community and church cookbooks, newspaper food pages, and extension service bulletins. Names and methods varied by household. Modern timing and food safety guidance informed the adaptations. This is a portrait of how people actually ate. Simple ingredients, steady heat, and the comfort of knowing dinner could take care of itself. Historical best effort. Sources noted in description. vintage cookbooks, newspapers, oral histories, archives.